Welcome all. Again, I'm George Barrett. I'll be moderating this lunch panel. Before I do anything, I'd like to welcome Mayor Michael Coleman. Mayor, thank you for being here. Thank you for your leadership and for setting us on this journey. We appreciate your support and leadership. Thanks for being here. So we have today, during lunch, an opportunity to hear from some folks who have done some wonderful things. And Alicia Gilson is here, and Tina Thomas-Manning is here, both of whom are leading or have led schools to really tremendous accomplishments, and in environments that are very difficult, high poverty area schools, and yet achieving some really wonderful outcomes. And so this is a chance for us to have a little bit of a roundtable while we're eating, a chance to hear from them. Their bios are in the packets that you've got, but what I thought we might do just to get started would be to let them introduce themselves, talk a little bit about both themselves and their work, and then we'll start in. So, do you want to start?
Sure. Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay on this? I'm Tina Thomas-Manning, and first I want to start, I feel like I've come full circle today because I am the proud product of Columbus City Schools.
Right.
So, born and raised here in Columbus, and attended school here at The Ohio State University because one, it was affordable, and I had to pay for that myself, and two, it was accessible and close, and because it is the finest university in the country. It's great. And so I knew from the onset I wanted to be a teacher, and I think there was a particular high school English teacher that kind of tapped that for me and helped me kind of figure out what I would be best at doing, and I attribute that to him, who's no longer with us. But so I, out of the box, went into teaching, taught for 6-7 years at Gahanna-Lincoln High School, knew right away that I wanted to make a broader impact, so I pursued an administrative position, which I got my first one in Hilliard, and I was an assistant principal there. I was an assistant principal at Reynoldsburg High School. I left there and pursued the middle school experience in Westerville, where I was an assistant, and then I took over the same building when the principal retired. So I was a principal in Westerville and knew right away that I really wanted to get back to Reynoldsburg because I just felt like my roots were there and I can make a bigger difference in that district. So when the opportunity presented itself, I went to Hannah Ashton Middle School, where most of what I'll talk about today was the work I did at Hannah Ashton. I'm currently 7 days into a new job. I just flew in last night from D.C., so I've been on my job, and I was on the job 2 days and had to leave and go to an accountability caucus in D.C., so fresh back from that, but I'm trying to learn all I can. I'm working as the Associate Superintendent for Accountability, which is kind of interesting for me because I'm a firm believer of accountability in quality schools. So looking forward to making a huge impact on the state of Ohio with our young children.
All right.
Great, thank you. Alicia? There's a little switch there.
Good afternoon. I am Alicia Gillison, proud principal of Eastmoor Academy High School, part of Columbus City School District. And my journey was a little different, how I got into education, but I was in the classroom for about 10 years prior to going into administration. And my administrative experiences have been awesome, and all with the Columbus City School District. I worked with Charlotte-Mecklenburg School District in Charlotte, North Carolina, and in Dayton, Ohio, a Dayton Public School System. And out of all of the school systems I've worked in, I love Columbus City School District. My various experience administratively, I have worked at Linda McKinley High School, Brookhaven High School with the Bill Gates, the Knowledge Works Foundation, and that whole Ohio Transformation Initiative. And then my current position now is the building principal at Eastmoor Academy High School.
Terrific. All right, let me get my switch on. Thank you. Is that on? I think it's on. Great. So what I'd love to do, if we could, again, in my introduction, I mentioned that both of you have been involved in
leading schools that have made tremendous progress, and in areas where there's actually increasing poverty, not just high poverty, but increasing poverty. And I know this is a very general topic, but I'm wondering if you could share with us some of what you would say allowed you to make that happen. What were the things that you focused on, that you did, that you thought were helpful in moving those schools forward and advancing those kids? You want to start with us?
All right, I'll begin, and if I could just, with your permission, I'll see a nod of heads. I'm a stander. I'm not really a sitter, so if it doesn't bother you as you eat, I'd like to stand.
As much as you want.
All right. You said it was going to be comfortable. I want to be comfortable.
Everyone be comfortable.
Eastmoor Academy, working with Eastmoor Academy and Columbus City Schools, like I said, I started with Brookhaven with that Ohio Transformation Initiative with Knowledge Works Foundation. And the premise of Knowledge Works Foundation was empowering teachers and getting a message out that we can make a difference. Upon being promoted to Eastmoor Academy High School, there was already a culture at Eastmoor Academy High School, and the perception that positive things are happening at Eastmoor Academy High School. So we work collaboratively with our teachers. As a matter of fact, all of the Columbus City schools, we have something called a school leadership team, which is comprised of teachers, is comprised of our senior faculty reps, so we are working hand in hand with our union reps, and with the whole collective bargaining, we work with parents, but the key is to make people believe that it can happen. And before you can make somebody believe, you have to believe that it can happen. I've said it before, do our students come to us with challenges? Yes, they do. By virtue of our profession, it's a challenge. So if you try to pinpoint what the largest challenge is, there's a challenge named Donna, there's a challenge named Mark, but you take those challenges because they aren't barriers, and then you turn those challenges around and you see the power and the promise in the young people. You talk with parents and you see what the parents really want for their students, and then you support it by being as transparent as possible and really and earnestly believing. And that's not so much at Eastmoor Academy, it's not so much top down. As I mentioned before, it is the culture of Eastmoor Academy, and I think that would be an excellent place to start. And when you talk about transforming culture into a believing culture, I hear the word poverty, and we hear it, and it is a reality. But you got to take that label, and you got to put it aside. Because when you start using that label consistently, then young people, the community, they will start looking at barriers, they'll start looking at boundaries, they'll start looking at restrictions. So what I like to do is when our young people come, those that are on free and reduced lunch, those that have challenges, those that are homeless, I don't treat them like they're homeless. I have the same expectations. And then we work with the community for internships to put them in positions so they can see another life. So then they can earnestly believe and parents can believe. So those are some of the things we've done at Eastmoor Academy.
Helpful. This is curious. You talked about expectations and culture. Tina, you've had extraordinary accomplishments in a middle school environment, which, of course, many of us would like to forget our middle school years, of course, the years that never happened. So it's particularly challenging, right, in middle school. So I'm wondering whether or not any of those themes resonate with you, or are there some things that you would describe a little bit differently because it was middle school, or are these sort of common traits? I'm curious your perspective on this.
I think I was a little bit more at an advantage when I came to Hannah Ashton Middle School because I had the high school perspective. In high school, when I worked at Reynoldsburg High School, it was 6 years previously, high schoolers have a way of dealing with the issues that are social issues that are going on in their lives and kind of masking them and being able to get through school. And a lot of times we weren't even aware of some of the conditions and crises that were happening in their lives. But when you have middle school kids, it's a little bit different. So we were faced with those kinds of crises that these students had on a daily basis. And poverty in our building, that building, impact and affected kids in ways that were recurring and predictable. And we recognized that right away. We were anticipatory of what was going to come up. I'll give you some examples. Every year, for a while, when I first started, there was a $25 instructional fee that we needed to collect from 500 kids, 68% of which were on free and reduced lunch. So most of those families could not pay that. So most of the families could not supply school supplies, just basic needs. So we knew, starting the school year, we needed to work all summer to build some bridges and to network with some folks in the community to get backpacks and basic necessities so kids could come to school and parents would send them without, because a lot of parents will withhold their kids from school because they don't have what they feel are the necessities, which is an absolute joke. I mean, we wanted kids on the first day, with a backpack or not, we'll work through it. So we were very creative and very persistent around leveraging any kind of community resource we could to mitigate some of those things. I'm looking at Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller in Fifth Third Bank, I just see the flyer one day saying, we will come and we'll teach your students financial literacy. We will sponsor a field trip for them to go to Ohio State University and look at the possibilities of their lives. I had members from his team in my building for 2 semesters, 2 different years, teaching the students about financial literacy, the possibilities, what it takes to be in this kind of career, if that's what you aspire to be. So we had the mobile dentist. There was no resource available in the community that we didn't seek and we didn't leverage and use so that kids could come to school, we could eliminate some of the stresses at home, and we could get down to the business of educating kids, which is really what our priority was.
So I've heard a couple of different things, and I want to touch on both of them. One is sort of academic, which is what are the challenges that these kids faced academically, and what were the biggest challenges that you saw there? And the second was the community and the parents. And again, I'm thinking about Alicia's comment about mobilizing or engaging with the parents. And maybe if we could just touch on those two things. One is sort of what are the academic side, which is particular challenges, but the other is, to me, this other question about the engaging with the parents and the community. Maybe we could talk about that a little bit. So do you want to start?
I certainly
Sure.
will. When you talk about engaging parents, there's not a parent that I have come in contact with, I'm a parent myself, that wants the best for their young people. And we like engaging parents because it makes a difference. Let me give you an example. During our graduation ceremony, we have it's called a secret parent choir. And our parents come up to the school and they meet with our choir teacher in secret. The young people don't know anything about it. They rehearse about 3 times. So on that special day, because that graduation day is not only for the student, more so is for the parents. And when the curtains open and those young people look up there and they see their parents, and you would not believe, even though the parents can't make every rehearsal, on that graduation day, we don't have enough room on the risers. Parents are showing up, and they don't even know what they're going to sing, but they are showing up because they want to be a part of it. So we do a lot of celebrating, and we pull parents in because their students' accomplishments is a celebration. It's a celebration in their home. And when you start doing things like that, parents start taking ownership in the process. I have parents of 9th grade students that say, I know what we should sing their senior year when they get to be a senior. So now they're giving Miss Betty Hill suggestions for songs to sing. But we celebrate, and I am as transparent as possible because I put myself in the position. These are the things I want to know about. We do freshman orientation before school even begins, and we're very, very candid about everything. We have parent workshops. All of our students have a summer reading that they have to do. We do summer reading workshops. We get parents in as much as possible so that they are comfortable with Eastmoor Academy and they know what our vision is and they're a part of our vision. Every Saturday at 3 o'clock. The only Saturday I have ever missed was last Saturday. Every Saturday at 3 o'clock since I have been at Eastmoor Academy, Columbus City School District has something called Global Connect. It is our voice dialer. Every Saturday at 3 o'clock, I call the homes of the parents. It's a mass dialer, and it's giving them the information of what's coming up in the next week. Because the young people won't go home and say, you know what, we're taking the PSAT, or you know what, we're doing this. Young people come home, sweetheart, how was your day? It was fine. What'd you do? Nothing. But there's pertinent information that parents need to be kept in the loop. And when you're coming into a house every Saturday, whether they're recording it on the voice machine or it's coming to their cell phone, they feel ownership. They feel like they are a part of what we're doing at Eastmoor Academy. So those are just some of the tools that we have.
So I'm going to come back to this because you talked about engaging the community in another way. I want to just follow up on this, Alicia. So did you make this, as the leader of that school, did you institutionalize that with the teachers? Did you make the teachers, or was it largely your work? So did you make that a part of the system, which is say to my teachers, we are going to have a different kind of engagement with the parent community that is going to really advance the work that we're doing, or was it largely your work? Is it something you...
It is something that you definitely engage the teachers in, and it comes from having meaningful discourse. We had a retreat the summer before school started, my first year there, and we talked about what we believed. We got down to the core beliefs, and parents are at the core of that. And unfortunately, as we know in a district as large as Columbus City School, all parents are not going to be engaged. But that's okay. We talked about building relationships with parents and students, and we talked about different ways we could do it. And that is, those were shared decisions with the administration and the staff.
So, Tina, you talked about how you wound up reaching out, whether it was Fifth Third or other ways, to bring resources, creatively thinking about how to do that. Again, was that largely your work, or did you try to make that a part of the system in a way? How did you think about that as a leader?
I agree with Alicia. It was an agreed, a shared vision of the staff. And for example, there are lots of opportunities brought into the building I wasn't even aware of. Somebody else had tapped into something even local. We had a team of young men who, from a 6th grade team, who got involved with the relationship with the barber just up the street from the school. And they started doing some mentoring and coming and sending the boys in to get their haircuts and tutoring kids after school and things like that. Unlike Alicia, parent involvement in Hannah Ashton Middle School was very difficult, extremely difficult. It was a challenge that I faced for 6 years. We faced that for 6 years. And we resigned ourselves to the fact that it's important what we do with the kids for the 6.5 hours that they're with us. That's the time that we can control. That's when we can do the best for our students. And we're not going to use the lack of parent involvement as a barrier to getting to our goal. We decided we were going to have adult advocates in the building for the kids. Sometimes even parents wanted to be there and they're working 2 jobs. They just simply can't be. Many months I had PTA meetings with 3 people, most months. And that's just a sign of the times. And part of it, I don't know if this middle school kids don't want their parents there. I've got one at home. So I don't know if it's just the age or if it was just a result of the fact that parents are busy. They're trying to manage things at home, and they really need to be able to send kids to school and entrust that things are going to happen there, and there's not going to be a lot of support because they can't do it. And so we came to grips with that pretty quickly and didn't use it as a barrier.
It's interesting. You both described from completely different perspectives the same thing, which was, in one case, an ability to engage the parents. In another case, very difficult. The common theme is no excuses. We are not, you talked about eliminating, not recognizing the boundaries, essentially eliminating the things, the excuses for why we're not going to do such and such. And that comes from leadership. And so, again, leadership requires, in these schools, the ability to engage with the teachers in the right way, to set the tone and the culture. And so, again, I'd like to understand a little bit about the relationship with the teachers, all of whom I assume are members of the union, and how much authority did you have, how much latitude did you have, how does that work? And again, I know it's a broad question, but I think as a leader, trying to create that culture, you know how much it's connected to how you can mobilize the people that work with you. So if you want to start on that, thoughts about the connection of the teachers.
I can tell you, for the first 3 years that I was at Hannah Ashton Middle School, I made a lot of people unhappy. And I took that job knowing that that was going to happen. I accepted that charge, but I went in every day with the vision that we are here to make decisions and improve outcomes and opportunities for students first. And that is the mission and the vision of this building. And if you want to agree and sign on to that challenge, you are going to be welcome to teach here. And if you don't embrace that challenge, then you might want to find another place to teach. And it was persistent, and it was steadfast and unrelenting, and every decision that was made in that school was made on the basis of kids first.
And you felt good flexibility to do that and to lead in that?
I had, thanks to the leadership in Reynoldsburg City Schools, Dick Ross at the time when I was hired, and now Steve Dakin, I had a blank canvas. I didn't have a blank check. As a matter of fact, the numbers on my check continued to decrease. You know, each year that we were trying to do good things for kids, we have, like everybody, fewer resources to do that. But I had a blank canvas. We do have a teachers union. We do have negotiated agreements, parameters that we need to work within. But we also have that agreement gives us a lot of flexibility. I'll give you an example. There is language in that agreement around ratios at middle school level, but it's building ratios, not classroom ratios. I decided early on in my tenure at Hannah Ashton that I was going to ability group kids, which meant I was going to load classrooms of accelerated students so that I can provide some relief in classrooms with students with major academic gaps. So it was very common for me to have a classroom, at least two classrooms at each grade level, 5th and 6th of 33. So the accelerated kids and the teachers who taught those kids got more of them so that I could use resources on the teams with kids who had major academic gaps. I had total flexibility to do that. Did people like it? No. Not everybody did. There were some people who actually did. And by the time I left that building, I don't think those teachers will ever go back to doing traditional heterogeneous groups. They won't do it because they saw the results of that work. They saw the method to the madness and the success we were able to achieve by organizing our schools that way. And they now believe in it. They do believe. Not everybody is going to be a believer from the onset. And if I would have been unemployed if I had sat on the sidelines and waited for everybody to buy into this philosophically. And Dick Ross and Steve Dakin didn't say, make sure everybody's happy before you improve student achievement. They said, improve student achievement and do it today. So I didn't have the flexibility and the luxury of time. So I work within the parameters of the agreement, but we agree, kids first, all the time, every time.
That's helpful. Lisa, your perspective?
I'm going to echo Tina's sentiments with kids first. And when you talk about the relationships and the relationships with the teachers, like I said, I was fortunate with Eastmore Academy because they have a culture and a climate that anyone would die for to get in. And when I started at Eastmore Academy, and our state rating is effective. And that initial retreat, we sat and we talked. Is effective good enough? Is effective okay? I have a daughter, her name is Jaleesa. Jaleesa's teachers are effective. Jaleesa's teachers are excellent. We decided as a group that we were moving from effective to excellent, and we were going to do it together. Now, were they just saying that because I was new? Well, we did, and so we came up with a vision statement, and everyone talked about the vision, and I said, okay, tell me about the vision. I gave them all chart paper and put it on the tables. Let's write the vision down. You know, I'm a new principal here. I need to know what the vision is. There was some chatter over here and some chatter over there, and I circulated the room. And, well, the vision goes something like, well, I think the vision is. So on that day, we sat at the park and we scribed a vision, a shared vision. And we deliberated on it for a couple of days, then we came back at our first staff meeting, because if this is the vision, then everything we do is going to center around this vision. And our vision is simple. Eastmore Academy students will be rigorously educated in a nurturing environment, prepared for a lifetime of learning, leadership, and service, and empowered to be responsible citizens of the world. And that vision leads everything we do, everything the teachers do in their classroom. When we look at outside resources, when we talk about what is the next level and what does the future hold for our kids and how we're going to prepare them, we go back to the vision. When I have conversation with teachers, and you have to remember that vision is a shared vision. Now, it is where I wanted to go anyway, but the teachers got there. And when the teachers got there, now there's real ownership. And then teachers start policing themselves, which is a really nice situation to be in. So I didn't really have an adversarial relationship, more of the shared leadership, but now we have that vision at the core of everything we do, and it drives what we do at Eastmore Academy. And it's easy to drive this car now because they're the ones that came up with the vision.
So both of you described an environment with very high expectations, very clear sense of purpose, eliminating all the explanations as to why we can't, and talking about why we can, it sounds like. So how did that connect with things like how your ability to evaluate people who are they, let's say your teachers, are they coming along effectively in terms of recruitment? Because you created a unique environment. It's not for everybody. It's demanding, high expectations. So did it influence the way you thought about engaging with your teachers from a standpoint of evaluation and ongoing performance review? Did it influence the way you recruited new teachers? Just curious.
I think what's important to remember about leadership, about teaching, and this profession that we're in, the real work is done by the teachers. And I let the teachers know. They are in the classroom and they're on the front line. When it comes to aspects of learning and academics, leadership is second to teaching. Yes, you have to have a vision. You talk about retaining teachers and recruiting teachers. We have the ability at the building level, and this may sound cliche, but once again, we have a team, and it is a panel that is comprised of teachers, parents, community members, and administrative teams that we come together, and that is our interview panel. And parents are included because parents are at the core. And our teachers, they know what they expect, they know the vision, so when they sit there on that panel, they know what we're looking for. And they know if the teacher that we select, and there's a vote, we do take a vote, and of course, in certain circumstances, the principal's vote can supersede, but we vote on who would be best. But our teachers are such professionals, and they have colleagues, and Columbus City Schools is such a large district. They have friends that teach at other buildings, and they know who good teachers are. So when you talk about recruiting, a lot of times our teachers are doing the recruiting. And when we post positions, we can be as prescriptive as possible when we make that post. So yes, we do have the flexibility.
Wow. Geesh, where do I start with that question?
I think it was a two-parter.
Right.
Yeah.
At first, it's around the staff and assignments. And staff assignments at Hannah Ashton Middle School change a lot. They change yearly, and they change based on data that we receive from the Tell for Kids or the Ohio Value-Added Data. I wait for that data to come in. We did, my assistant and I, and we look at that data and make decisions around the effectiveness of the teacher in that classroom with that group of kids. Was that teacher successful that year teaching this group of kids this content? And if the value-added data suggests that it was, then that teacher remains in that assignment. If the value-added data points us in a different direction, that teacher's moved to another assignment that would be a better fit for him or her. Most importantly, we want to put the most effective teacher in front of the students. So I made every staffing decision every year, and it changed. It was constant musical chairs kind of situation. Just because you're teaching algebra this year to these kids does not mean you're going to be teaching algebra next year to these kids in this room. And we had a lot of that going on. And it was understood that the data would drive those decisions. Recruitment, in the 6 years that I was at Hannah Ashton, I was probably able to hire a dozen teachers. And unfortunately, most of the hires that I got were for some of those teachers who felt like they could not embrace the philosophy. And they decided they were going to do something else, which, we helped them do that.
Help them make that decision.
As a result of that and the movement within the district, because Reynoldsburg at the time were cutting like 40% of the budget over the past 5 years, so we didn't have a lot of resources, but it was based on people were moving around within the district. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of teachers who wanted to internally who wanted to come to Hannah Ashton. I mean, it's a tough school. It is not a school of choice. It is not a lottery school. We take everyone, and there are 20% of our kids are transient. 68% of the students are on free and reduced lunch. It's not an ideal teaching position, especially right out of school. So we were very selective about who we taught. I was overly transparent about the expectations, the profile of the students you're teaching, their histories, their success with school or lack thereof, but their abilities. And I deliberately hired teachers either very early or very late, because a requirement for being hired and teaching in that building is you have to teach with me in the classroom first. So everybody had to go, that was part of the interview process. I had to observe you teaching. We would call a candidate and say, teacher, the kids are learning about science, motion, and sound. They learned this yesterday. They'll have an assessment on Friday. Please come prepared to teach a lesson on motion and sound to 5th grade kids that happen to be low achieving. And so if the candidate could come in and do that successfully, then that candidate was moved on to the superintendent for his final thumbs up or the thumbs down. But there aren't teachers hired in that school that don't teach kids. We have to observe them teach before we hire them.
Let me change course a little bit, a bit away from the strictly academic perspective to the question of sort of a more broad question about how did you think about your work in preparing these kids for life after school, whether that was an advanced education or into the workforce? Was that something that was present in your mind? Is that really just something that sort of took care of itself? How did you see the sort of life after being in the school, and was that something that you thought about or worked on as part of the program?
I think it's something that is at the forefront of what we do, making sure that our students are college and career ready. And like Tina said, we do the formative assessments along the way, but we have opportunities where our students can take college courses while in high school. And those are post-secondary education options. And we also have advanced placement courses, which are college courses actually taught in the high school. I actually have probably about 15 of my seniors now that are dispersed on college campuses as I sit here, whether at Columbus State, DeVry University, Ohio Dominican. And so we put that first and foremost, and then I guess you could say we market. Okay, we market. As you walk in Eastmore Academy, there are 2 boards, 8x4. On those boards are glossy postcards of every senior that has received a college application. And we put it up there for everybody to see as you come in. So you know that's the first thing that you see. And it serves a dual purpose. The freshmen will come and they'll stop and I'll say, sweetheart, you need to get to class. Ms. Gillison, I'm going to be up on that board. You better believe you're going to be on that board. I mean, that's the point of being on the board. So we talk about college. We give our college shout-outs every morning when students are accepted to college, how much scholarship money they received, and we create an excitement around going to college. And when our young people come and they look at that board, and all of you are invited because that board is full. You may see someone that has 5 or 6 college acceptance letters, and you say, okay, well, she's got 5 or 6 acceptance letters up there. But what that tells that young lady, what it does for the young lady, is for her to feel real value and to give her the confidence that she could walk into any college of her choice. When she walks in, she is just as good as the person next to her. When you talk about working in a public education setting, and then you talk about some of the things we're up against private, our private schools, our kids need confidence, and our kids need to believe that they can. And we do everything within our power. We celebrate them. We have our big college boards up there. We have a college declaration night. It's the night, if you have 5 offers, it's the night you select what college you're going to go to, and we celebrate it. We have a large cake that we get from Reese's with all of the colleges represented on it. We call it the media. We make a lot of hype about going to college because college will open doors.
Well, that's a little tricky, George.
Yeah, it's okay.
Because the average 5th grader, it's really hard for them to make the connection between where I am now and college. And quite honestly, you know, a lot of our kids, some of them will go to college, but what we want to do is prepare them for options. It's just have them ready to compete for options, whatever those options they choose to make, whether it's entering the workforce or doing something along vocational line or picking up a trade. We want them to be able to be self-sufficient, independent, tax-paying citizens who can read and do basic computation and hopefully more than that. We want them to pass the OGT. There's a whole lot of talk about making sure that you're bridging your gaps for the next level, preparing kids for junior high, preparing kids for access into certain courses in high school. So we do a lot of that. We do some mentoring and some career counseling, so to speak, or college counseling, career counseling, by bringing some folks, you know, in different trades that students are interested in, different professions that students are interested in, into the building and having them see people. And they get really excited about seeing people who actually go to work and have suits and can take care of their family. So we do as much as that as we possibly can. But we also accept the fact that not everybody's going to college. But you've got to do something. And how can we get you focused on what that something is, and how can we get you hooked so that you can see that through?
So I want to do 2 things, because I want to make sure I leave a couple of minutes in case there are some questions from the commissioner or anyone here in the room. So one is, if you could describe, and this is, I know, a broad question, but if you could describe what the ideal high school and middle school looks like, some of the characteristics. I mean, I know you've touched on them, but how would you describe those? What are the characteristics that you would say really define the opportunity for those to be excellent and to create an environment where kids are going to thrive and come out contributing?
My ideal high school or high school of the future will be a high school that recognizes the interdependency on middle schools and elementary schools in the community as a whole. Instead of looking at the K through 12 continuum, broaden that. Let's go pre-K through 16. Because when one wins, we all win, and we're all in this together. Colleges, working directly with schools. For example, the I Know I Can Foundation works with us, and some of our students are first generation going to college. We have a college application workshop in October. It's a one-stop shop. I Know I Can is there, and they give waivers to those students on free and reduced lunch for their application fees. And application fees can be pretty expensive, $60, $75, $40. Well, they provide those if you're on free and reduced lunch. And the kids go around to stations. We have teachers there to proofread their essays. Our counselors are there churning out transcripts. I am a typing fool, typing out recommendation letters, and it is a long day. And then in the end, we take all of those college applications and we mail them. And when families leave out of there, they leave out with the satisfaction of knowing, because a lot of times parents have no clue. And then some of our students come to the college application workshop without their parents. Their parents may be at work, and they may be at the point in their life where they don't have that parental support. So we wrap our arms around them, and I will walk them from station to station to station to station until by the time they leave, I have a packet of 3 to 4 college applications. And I say, go and just wait for the college acceptance letters to come in. But an ideal school is one that realizes the interdependency. We're not isolated. We all work together, and we are all a part of the community. And my ideal school, that's what I would be looking for.
Well, I'll start with the curriculum. I'm looking for a rigorous, compressed curriculum, and I'm looking to do everything possible to give as many kids access to that curriculum. I'm also looking to bust down the walls of schools, and I will coin a phrase that Superintendent Dakin used all the time. I want to make school a verb. I want school to be a verb and not a noun. I want us to recognize, embrace, and appreciate the fact that all students are individual learners and they learn differently and in different modalities, and I want us to accept the fact that even within the same building, we can have a student who is receiving direct instruction from a teacher and one who's receiving instruction online. I want us to be open to that idea. I want us to flesh down the career readiness and the career focus, and I want us to open up doors in our businesses and our communities to middle school kids, and that, that's going to take some pushing because not everybody's comfortable with that. But I think if we're heading toward this whole idea of college and career readiness, we need to start younger. Waiting until high school is not an option. So we need to start younger, and middle school is a perfect age to start. I've met very few apathetic middle school kids. That's one thing I have on my side. We have on our side. And I watch this. They don't become apathetic till high school, when they become disengaged with the instruction and the system. So in middle school, they're still right, and they're still excited, and they're still believers. And so I think we should be leveraging that time to get them hooked onto something that they love and that they can make a living doing.
So they have excitement and hormones going in their
Yeah,
in their
we
favor.
have a lot of those too.
So, Mayor, thank you.
I want to thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
You have very successful careers, very successful schools that you principal and lead. I grew up in Toledo, and I always viewed principals, I shuddered when they walked into the room. And but I never really knew what they did. I thought they were disciplinarians, and they shuffled paper, and you see them every once in a while, mostly when I got in trouble. But I have a question for you. As successful principals and successful buildings, what I am learning in just listening to you today is the importance of principals in driving the academic performance in each building. Do you agree with that idea?
100%.
And the question I have is, if that is a premise, that principals' primary responsibility is to drive the academic performance in the buildings that you lead, do each of you feel that you have the authority, are you empowered to do so? Do they have the authority to do so? And can you do whatever it is necessary to do so to achieve those expectations that I'm now seeing that you have taken on? And it's real apparent when I listen to you.
Lisa, you don't want to start?
I will begin. At Eastmore Academy, I definitely have the autonomy. I am an instructional leader first, and I drive the instruction, and the teachers are right in the car with me, and we know exactly where it is we want to go. As I mentioned earlier, our rating is effective. We're not complacent. We're moving towards excellence. And our new tagline is we're all rowing in the same direction. And we do it consistently, and that means we go back and we look at data, and there are some hard conversations that you have to have based around the data. And like Tina said, here's an example. He's still with me, a teacher, and he taught seniors for years and years at Eastmore. Very effective teacher. We noticed that our 9th grade students were coming in and they didn't have those writing skills. So I went out on a limb, and now he's teaching 9th grade. His first year was transitional for him, and he was red in the face about it. But right now, our kids are writing better, and now he understands exactly why I made that decision, and I didn't have to pick up the phone and call central office or call over to Fort Hays, the general's house, to ask if I could do that. So those type of decisions we make, and I don't want to paint everything as roses. There are hard conversations you have to have, but I think the beauty of it is when you have a vision, and we're all rowing in the same direction, we can't be complacent. Effective is not good enough. So we have to do whatever it takes. And there are times we take risks. Sometimes those risks pay off, and sometimes they don't. But I am not an advocate for taking risks at the expense of our children losing out. So yes, we have the authority and autonomy at Eastmore Academy.
Add anything to that?
We do in Reynoldsburg for sure. Like I said, it's a blank canvas, and the superintendent would prefer for you to ask forgiveness as opposed to permission. And I just have to tell you, that building went from continuous improvement when I first arrived there to excellent with distinction for 2 years straight for the past 2 years. And that didn't happen because everybody had the same belief system. It didn't happen because everybody was happy and comfortable. It didn't happen because everybody that started 6 years ago is still there. There were mass changes, and I had total autonomy to make those changes.
Let me ask another question. This is really interesting to hear this, and I applaud you both. You're very special people and great leadership skills. Are principals the key to education? Are they key to driving the academic performance in schools? And we always look at teachers. I'm just kind of shifting a little bit here, but I'm just asking. I'm just trying to figure this thing out. Are principals the key to academic performance in schools?
Mayor Coleman, I would personally say yes. Now, I'm going to qualify that question because you and I, all of us, know that there are some very fine teachers in buildings with very disappointing leaders, right? So we need teachers on the front lines. They're the ones who are immersed in the work. Those are the folks that face the kids. Those are the kids that make the long-term changes. But none of that's going to happen if you don't have the right person setting the vision, setting the tone, being steadfast, unrelenting, focusing on data, helping them to focus on data, helping them to understand how to do that. And I immerse myself in the work with them. I've never asked teachers to do something I wouldn't do myself, but in my personal humble opinion, you can have a building full of fantastic teachers, and if you don't have the right leader, you just have a mediocre building. So I think leadership is absolute key, and I think we need to spend a lot of time and resources on making sure we're selecting the right people for the right schools to do the right work.
I
That's
echo
very helpful.
those sentiments exactly. Well said, Tina.
Stephanie, you had a comment.
You know what, I was just going to that question about what would be the curriculum for principal leadership if you had to write that curriculum, and I think you've just pretty much answered it in talking about the characteristics. I too want to commend you for your work. Your energy and your leadership is special, as Mayor Coleman said. And I'd like to say, Ms. Gillison, thank you for Mahogany, who's interning in my office at the Columbus Urban League.
All right.
Tina, you mentioned the ability to come in and make changes. And obviously, I have to assume that means you've moved teachers that didn't fit your vision out. What level of flexibility did you have to do that? How important is that flexibility? And can you, even from your state role, compare City of Columbus to the Reynoldsburg School District in its ability to be able to allow a school building or a principal to make those tough choices?
I certainly cannot speak to Columbus City Schools, but I can tell you that there's a lot of flexibility in Reynoldsburg. There's a spirit of collaboration. It sounds like the leaders just go in and kind of do what they want, but there really is a spirit of collaboration with the teachers union, support staff. They are constantly at the table working with us. We know we do our best work with everybody at the table. I'll give you an example. In December, before I left Reynoldsburg Schools, I was on a panel with another one of my peers to score teacher applications for student incentive performance awards, right? So apparently the first year that the performance awards appeared in the teacher's contract, there was one applicant. In December, we reviewed over 100 applications for teachers who finally accepted the fact that I'm doing this good hard work. If there's an opportunity to attach some dollars to that, I'm going to go for it. The union didn't support that right away, but they have recognized, you know what, if you're going to work in this district, most of any kind of increase you get is going to be based on what you do for kids, as it should be, as it is in most businesses. My husband is a businessman, and his performance and his merit is based on his results, and we're comfortable with that. I think the teachers in Reynoldsburg are becoming more comfortable with that, but that started with senior leadership and just saying, this is the way it's going to be. Gone are the days where you have these 2-3% increases for everybody. When I've worked my tail off, and actually I think I should get 4, and my neighbor across town who's not making solid, good decisions for kids is getting the same 3 that I'm getting. So Reynoldsburg, again, I deliberately went back to Reynoldsburg because I knew that I would have an opportunity, amazing opportunity, to do some very great things for kids.
So we're going to do Pat, and then we'll come across. Just go.
Well, first, I just want to say that if either of your names are entered in for nomination for Secretary of Defense, you're going to give Chuck Hagel a run for his money. We talk about the importance of sharing best practices, and here's 2 best practices right in front of us. And I want to understand the leadership programs that are in place for you to either mentor your peers in the schools or to share your methodologies with large numbers of principals so that we can replicate the best practices that clearly you have in place and the great results you're achieving.
Within Columbus Public Schools, and talking about administrators, we do have a mentoring program. And as a matter of fact, my mentor, she is no longer with the district, but I have to speak her name, is Dr. Talisa Dixon, who is now the Assistant Superintendent of Saginaw City Schools. That is the type of mentorship that I had. And then now it is incumbent upon me to work with other administrators to mentor them as well. So there is that opportunity. And then we have professional developments where we get together, we talk about education reform and the entire context of what our job is as leaders and being visionary leaders. Did I answer your question?
Well, I'm trying to understand how more specific methodologies are shared with your peers, not just about educational reform, but what you're doing in your specific schools. How is that received by your peers?
Well, here's an example. Eastmore is part of a cluster of schools, and we're a cluster of alternative schools, and it's an organizational cluster, and we get together and We talk about best practices. There's an administrator from Columbus City Prep School for Girls, and she was a PAR consultant, a peer assistant, and she worked with teachers. So then she shares some evaluative techniques with all of us. And then I may share, for instance, I shared the Global Connect, how I use the Global Connect on a weekly basis, some things that I do to engage parents and get parents in. And we just sit around, and sometimes we do it on Saturdays, and we discuss best practices. There is a forum for that. It is informal, but we have taken it upon ourselves, and we call ourselves the Cluster Feeder Alliance. So if you ever hear that, those are the administrators within the cluster, the Eastmoor Academy cluster. And it's entitled Eastmoor Academy Cluster because we're the high school, not because we're the best.
All right. I think you ought to come, Ms. Tice.
Yes, my question.
I think it's on.
My
Nope, not now. If you want to ask it, I'll repeat it.
Okay, I can just ask it. My question is, especially goes to the middle school, is that obviously the way that you're speaking to us today, first I can commend you for the work that you're doing, but I think that it almost sounds like the students that you have at your school are students that certainly you know, in one case, in Eastmoor had more resources than, of course, the middle school. And so my question is, this always comes up, because you mentioned you have about 56% of your kids on free and reduced lunches. But let's also talk about some of the other deficiencies that you saw in some of these children, because we know in the school district that there's a lot of issues and concerns that our children come to school with. And so my question to you is, what did you do to I mean, besides, you know, moving your teachers around and making sure that your children were the kids that had some serious academic issues, that you moved teachers there to help them, what else did you need to do to help your children be successful, because we know that they come with other issues?
Well, I also, I also changed school for kids. Okay, and I'll give you another example. We have kids at Hannah Ashton Middle School that are reading post 12th grade at post high school level. We have kids at Hannah Ashton Middle School that are reading at a first grade level. It's that much of a gap in some of these students, and they have major gaps and deficiencies. Logic would have it, right? None of us would agree that the post-high school reader and the elementary reader, pre-primer reader, belongs in the same classroom. It goes against conventional wisdom. We cannot put those two kids in the same classroom for lots of different reasons. First and foremost, we are slowing the press and the achievement of the high reader, and we are not tending to the needs of the student who has major reading deficiencies in 5th or 6th grade. And we're applying the same formula to both kids. So if I give the kid who reads pre-primer 60 minutes of reading a day, and I give the post-high school kids 60 minutes of reading a day, they're getting the same dose. The student with the major reading gaps got 120 minutes of reading a day. And I had full autonomy and flexibility to do that. Sometimes it meant you don't get art. And those were very tough conversations with kids mostly, because parents embraced it. And some of my unified arts teachers weren't happy with that. But what sense does it make that I'm sending you on this junior high schedule with your peers and you can't read? Why would I do that? I'm not going to do that. Why would I put that post-high school student in the classroom? And why would I put the teacher in that situation? It makes absolutely no sense. No sense at all. And so I didn't do it.
So I'm going to do this. I've been told that we're tight on time, so I'm going to move us along. I want to just comment real quickly. There's something powerful in what we've heard today, lots, and I think we ought to take note of much of it, but certainly the note about leadership, that great leaders understand, as these guys do, that you have, in order to advance real change, you have to turn up the boil a little bit. You need to stress the system, but at the same time be nurturing. And you guys have done a wonderful job of doing that. So thank you, Tina and Alicia, for joining us. And I think we're going to have a brief pause. Is that right?
Yeah, take 15 minutes and then come back.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
15 minutes, 15.
Tina, your call never came through.